When they look at Nicki and they say she's like crazy, like
Nicki Minaj.
Nicki Minaj.
I have my own theory on the Nicki Minaj thing. The way she's associating herself with Trump and why she's rooting for him publicly even though she's getting some backlash all over the internet. And I really think she do agree with him on many things, but I do feel like she's making it publicly because she's probably looking for protection. You know from who? You know who I'm talking about.
And you have amazing role models like the J.D. Vance, our vice president. And when I say that,
The internet didn't brace for this one, it flinched. Because when 50 Cent starts warning instead of trolling, you know the temperature just changed. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a meme. This was a coded message wrapped in menace. Aimed straight at Nicki Minaj, and it landed like a siren in the middle of a quiet street. Protection, that was the word. Not love. Not loyalty. Protection. The kind of word you don't use unless you believe something is already moving in the shadows. And the moment those clips surfaced, fans stopped laughing and started asking the uncomfortable question, who is they, and why is 50 acting like the warning already came too late? This wasn't industry shade. This felt like a leak, like something overheard, not announced. The tone wasn't playful, it was calculated. The kind of energy that says, I've seen this movie before, and the ending gets ugly. Social media froze, then exploded. Screenshots flew, group chats caught fire. Because when a survivor of rap wars past raises a red flag for the queen herself, it stops feeling like gossip and starts feeling like intel. This makes the Kardashians look boring. Because if 50 Cent is ringing the alarm, this isn't drama, it's a warning shot. And once you hear why he said it, you'll understand why nobody's sleeping on this one. To understand why this warning landed like a thunderclap instead of background noise, you have to understand who is speaking and how he spoke. 50 Cent doesn't scare easy. He jokes in chaos, laughs through lawsuits, and treats controversy like cardio. So when he stopped smirking and started warning, people knew this wasn't entertainment. It was experience talking. The phrasing mattered. He didn't say watch out. He didn't say be careful. He said protection. That's not casual language. That's a word you use when you believe the threat isn't hypothetical anymore. And the target of that warning? Nicki Minaj, an artist whose dominance, loyalty base, and longevity have survived everything the industry could throw at her so far. Which is exactly why this hit so hard. Because warnings don't usually get aimed up. They get aimed at the vulnerable. And Nicki, love her or hate her, is not known for being unprotected. She's fortified by fans, influence, and a catalog that prints money. So when someone like 50 suggests she needs extra layers, it flips the usual power map on its head. The background tension didn't come out of nowhere. For months, there's been a low hum around the industry, whispers about shifting alliances, internal pressure, and the cost of being outspoken when the room wants compliance. Nicki's never been subtle about her opinions, and that honesty has earned her both loyalty and enemies. The kind of enemies who smile publicly and calculate privately. That's where 50's warning slots in. It didn't feel like a response to a single incident. It felt like the tip of a much bigger iceberg, the kind that's been floating quietly while everyone argues about surface-level drama. The internet tried to laugh it off at first, because that's what we do when discomfort shows up wearing a familiar face. Memes popped up. 50 always trolling, he just wants attention. But that dismissal didn't last long, because the tone didn't match the punchline. There was no wink, no joke setup, no betons, just a flat delivery that said, I've seen this before. And that's the key. 50 Cent's entire legacy is built on surviving moments where warnings came too late for other people. He's watched careers implode, not because of talent gaps, but because of political He's seen how fast the industry turns when an artist stops being useful and starts being inconvenient. So when he suggests Nicki needs protection, it reframes everything. Suddenly, fans aren't just asking what happened, they're asking what's coming. Because warnings don't arrive after the storm. They arrive when someone sees clouds forming that nobody else is acknowledging yet. Early reactions split sharply. Some fans took it as concern from an elder statesman who respects Nicki's influence and wants her to stay ahead of industry nonsense. Others read it as confirmation of something darker, an unspoken campaign, a coordinated effort, a quiet reshuffling where outspoken artists become liabilities. That second interpretation made people uneasy, because it suggests this isn't about beef or headlines, it's about leverage, about who controls narratives, platforms, and consequences. Nicki's position in the game has always been unique. She didn't just succeed, she disrupted. She didn't just chart, she dominated. And dominance creates resentment, especially when it refuses to soften with time. The idea that they're coming for her, doesn't have to mean physical danger to be chilling. In this industry, damage often looks like isolation, misrepresentation, or slow erosion of credibility. You don't have to take someone out, you just have to make them radioactive. That's why the word protection rang so loudly, because protection in hip-hop isn't always about bodyguards. Sometimes it's about insulation from narratives, from selective outrage, from systems that pretend neutrality, while quietly picking winners. The warning also reignited old debates about gender and power in rap. Nicki has always existed in a space where confidence gets labeled arrogance and pushback gets framed as instability. When men speak loudly, it's leadership. When women do, it's drama. That double standard never went away, it just got better at hiding. So when 50 raised the alarm, some fans heard solidarity. Others heard a grim acknowledgement that Nicki's refusal to play nice might finally be triggering consequences. What made it worse was the timing. This warning didn't arrive during a public feud or a messy rollout. It arrived during relative calm. That's when warnings are most dangerous. When they interrupt quiet instead of chaos. People started revisiting recent moments with fresh eyes. Interviews that felt tense, reactions that felt overblown, criticism that felt disproportionate. Suddenly, patterns started forming whether they were real or imagined. And once the internet starts pattern hunting, objectivity exits the building. Still, the concern lingered, because even skeptics admitted one thing: -50 doesn't warn unless he believes the risk is real enough to justify the backlash. He knows how his words travel, he knows how speculation multiplies, and he still chose to say it. That decision alone added weight. By the end of this phase, the conversation had shifted completely. This was no longer about whether 50 was joking, it was about why he felt compelled to say anything at all. And once that question takes root, it doesn't let go ice. Because if someone with nothing to gain and plenty to lose still sounds the alarm, people start wondering what information he's reacting to, not what he's performing. This wasn't the explosion, it was the warning siren before it. And if history is any guide, when 50 Cent tells you to brace yourself, the storm usually isn't imaginary. Once that warning echoed across the internet, the situation didn't simmer, it spiraled. Because the moment 50 Cent put the words "they're coming for her" into the atmosphere, the culture did what it always does best. It filled in the blanks with fear, sarcasm, and conspiracy-level creativity. The memes hit first, because humor is how people process dread. Jokes about armored tour buses, edits of Nicki Minaj surrounded by Secret Service agents, captions like "when 50 warns you, you don't ask questions, you lock doors." Funny on the surface, but underneath the laughter was tension. Nobody jokes this hard unless something feels off. Then came the reaction videos. Armchair analysts breaking down 50's tone like it was a classified briefing. People slowed his words down, replayed them, dissected the pauses. Listen to how he says it. That wasn't a joke laugh. That sounded like experience, not entertainment. Suddenly, everyone was an expert in reading subtext. Celebrity adjacent responses poured in without names attached. Cryptic posts, vague captions about industry politics, quotes about protection, loyalty, and survival popping up at suspiciously perfect moments. Nobody said Nicki's name, which somehow made it louder. When the room gets quiet like that, it's never accidental. What really escalated things was how fans started connecting dots backward. Old feuds resurfaced. Past controversies got relabeled as early warning signs. Moments that once looked like petty disagreements now felt like chess moves. The internet loves a retroactive villain arc, and this one was getting storyboarded in real time. Public outrage didn't pick a single target, it scattered. Some people accused 50 of fear-mongering, saying he knew exactly how explosive his words would be. Others accused the industry of exactly what he implied, targeting artists who refused to fall in line. And a third group accused fans themselves of dramatizing everything until paranoia became content. But here's where it got uncomfortable. Even the skeptics admitted the warning felt different. 50 trolls for sport. This didn't feel like sport. This felt like someone talking from a place of scars, not sarcasm. Nicki's silence during this phase only added gasoline. No immediate clap, no joke, tweet, no dismissal. And that absence spoke louder than any denial could have. Because when someone who usually responds quickly chooses restraint, people assume calculation. Speculation ballooned into wild analogies. Some compared this to whistleblowers issuing coded messages before everything collapses. Others likened it to mob movies, where the warning comes before the hit, not after. Someone said this made rap beefs look like schoolyard arguments, and honestly, that wasn't even dramatic. The outrage also reopened old conversations about power dynamics in hip-hop. Who's allowed to be outspoken? Who gets labeled difficult? Who survives industry politics? And who gets quietly pushed to the margins? Nicki has always existed outside the comfort zone, too dominant to ignore, too independent to control easily. That independence suddenly felt like a liability in people's minds. Not because she changed, but because the environment around her might have. And that's where fear creeps in. Supporters rallied hard, hashtags trended, comment sections filled with declarations of loyalty. Fans framed the warning as proof that Nicki's influence threatens the wrong people. Critics pushed back, saying paranoia was being sold as truth. The divide wasn't calm, it was combative. Meanwhile, the sarcasm online sharpened into something darker. Funny how protection only comes up when someone won't play nice. This industry really hates women who don't shrink. They love you loud, but destroy you quietly. Jokes that landed because they didn't feel like jokes. The wildest escalation came when people started debating what they even meant. Industry execs, media machines, former allies, shadowy power brokers everyone pretends don't exist. The ambiguity was the most dangerous part. Because ambiguity invites imagination, and imagination, online has no brakes. Every unrelated headline got dragged into the conversation. Every criticism Nicki faced afterward got reframed as proof. See, it's starting. Even neutral coverage got treated like coordinated energy. That's how quickly suspicion spreads once trust erodes. And through all of this, 50 stayed relatively quiet. No walk back. No clarification tours. No, y'all misunderstood me. That restraint did more damage than any follow-up could have. Because if he wanted to calm things down, he could have. The fact that he didn't made people assume he stood by every word. Public outrage peaked when people realized this story wasn't offering closure. No clear villain, no clear threat. Just a warning hanging in the air like fog. And unresolved tension drives engagement better than facts ever will. By the end of this phase, the narrative had fully evolved. This was no longer about whether the warning was real. It was about what kind of industry allows warnings like that to feel plausible in the first place. And once that question enters the chat, damage is already being done. Because even if nothing happens, belief alone reshapes behavior. Artists move differently. Fans watch more closely. Every move gets scrutinized, and that's the dangerous power of a warning delivered by someone who survived long enough to be taken seriously. The internet wasn't waiting for confirmation anymore. It was waiting for consequences. After the jokes thinned out and the timelines stopped refreshing every 10 seconds, the warning entered its most dangerous stage, consequence. Not the kind that explodes instantly, but the kind that changes behavior quietly. Because once people believe something is coming, they start moving like it already arrived. The first shift wasn't public. It was subtle. Conversations behind closed doors changed tone. Mentions got careful. Invitations became selective. You could feel the room adjusting in real time, like furniture being moved just enough to suggest someone important might be entering. That's what a warning does. When it lands, it reorganizes the atmosphere. Nicki's public presence didn't collapse, but it recalibrated. Every move suddenly felt intentional in a new way. Not defensive, strategic. Fans noticed it, critics noticed it, and the media. The media started framing everything with an extra layer of caution, like they didn't want to be the outlet that missed the signs. That's how narratives get dangerous. Not because something happened, but because everyone's acting like it might. The reputation impact hit next. Not as slander, not as scandal, as suspicion. And suspicion is harder to fight than accusations. Accusations can be denied. Suspicion just lingers, whispering in the background while people pretend not to hear it. For Nicki, the stakes are uniquely high. She's not just an artist, she's an institution, a brand, a movement, a lightning rod. When institutions get labeled controversial, the system doesn't rush to protect them. It waits to see which way the wind blows. That's where the warning becomes prophetic instead of dramatic. Because protection isn't about reacting, it's about anticipating how power behaves when it feels challenged. The relationships around her felt the ripple too. Allies became louder in support or quieter in presence. Both moves mean something. Loud support signals defiance. Silence signals caution. Neither is accidental. Fans also changed. Not in loyalty, but in vigilance. They watched coverage closer, questioned narratives faster, pushed back harder. The warning didn't weaken the base, it fortified it. And that kind of unity can either shield an artist or make them look even more threatening to the wrong people. Meanwhile, the culture started asking itself uncomfortable questions. Why does a warning like this feel believable? Why does it resonate instead of sounding ridiculous? What does that say about how power actually moves in this industry? Those questions don't trend, but they stick. The most unsettling consequence is how this reframes success. When someone reaches a level where dominance turns into disruption, the rules change. You're no longer competing, you're challenging structures. And structures don't fight fair. They fight quietly. That's the subtext people heard in the warning. Not violence, not chaos, but erosion, narrative isolation, the slow grind of credibility being questioned until it's exhausting to defend. If this story escalates further, the damage won't come from a single headline. It'll come from accumulation, from 1,000 tiny moments framed just slightly wrong, from tone shifts that feel invisible individually but devastating together. And here's the twist. Even if nothing happens, the warning still changes everything, because belief alone alters outcomes. Media coverage becomes cautious. Collaborations get politicized. Every statement becomes a test. That's the real power of saying they're coming. It doesn't need proof to work. It just needs plausibility. 450, the aftermath is different, but no less impactful. His role shifts from provocateur to sentinel. Whether he wanted that or not, he's now attached to whatever comes next. If nothing happens, critics will call it paranoia. If something does happen, his words get upgraded from commentary to foresight. Either way, the industry heard him. The long-term question isn't whether Nicki survives this moment. History suggests she will. The question is what version of the industry survives her continued independence. Because figures who refuse to shrink force systems to reveal themselves, and systems don't like mirrors. The public perception now lives in a strange in-between. Not panic, not peace. Alertness. The kind that keeps people watching, waiting, interpreting. Every unrelated critique gets re-examined. Every disagreement gets That's how quickly neutrality disappears once a warning is issued. This is where eras shift. Not with explosions, but with posture changes. With guarded conversations, with calculated silence. If there's shocking clarity in all this, it's this. Power rarely announces its moves, but it always reacts when it feels threatened. And warnings don't come from nowhere. They come from pattern recognition, from someone who's watched enough cycles to know when the room temperature drops before the storm. Whether this story escalates or fades depends on forces far bigger than tweets and captions. It depends on how much space the industry allows for unapologetic dominance, especially when it comes from someone who refuses to dilute themselves for comfort. The curiosity doesn't end here, because the tension hasn't resolved. No denial, close the loop. No clarification softened the edges. The warning just stayed, and unresolved warnings don't disappear. They wait. This chapter doesn't end with a verdict. It ends with heightened awareness. With eyes open wider than before. With people listening for subtext instead of sound bites. And in an industry where silence can be louder than statements, that kind of awareness is either armor or a target. Which one it becomes is the part nobody knows yet. But one thing is clear. Once a warning like that enters the culture, you don't unhear it. You just watch what happens next. Now, let's stop tiptoeing around it, because if you watched this whole breakdown, you already know this wasn't just a comment or a random warning. This was a flare shot into the sky. And flares don't go up unless someone thinks the terrain just got dangerous, so I want you in the comments now. Do you believe 50 was genuinely warning Nicki? Or was he exposing something the industry doesn't want discussed out loud? And who do you think they really are? Don't sanitize it. Don't play safe. Say it the way you'd say it in a locked group chat at 2 a.m. If this video made you pause, rewind, or say no, that's eerie. Then smash that like button, like it owes you money, and blocked your number. Pressure the algorithm, because silence is how stories like this get buried. And if you're still watching without subscribing, that's like hearing a warning siren and deciding to go back to sleep. Hit subscribe right now, because when stories escalate, and they always do, you don't want to be catching up from the sidelines. This is where the uncomfortable conversations live, where industry politics get unpacked, coded messages get translated, and narratives don't get the luxury of hiding behind PR filters. Drama doesn't arrive politely here. It shows up loud, messy, and usually right before the rest of the internet catches on. And stay alert, because the next move in this story might not come with an announcement. Viral trek.